Hi, and welcome to Acting is Everything. I have with me today someone who is very highly featured in the book that I write for actors, and her pictures are in there. She has numerous mentions and an interview on acting technique. She's one of my acting coaches. I called you just the other day in desperate 10-minute, but besides that,
like a true actress.
That's right. So, and today we're going to be talking about audition skills. Caryn also is a director and an actress. She does all this stuff herself and has a great career in acting and acting coach and directing. And she works on stage and she does all kinds of things. Hi, Caryn.
Hi, Judy. Yay! I'm still flattered how much I'm in the book. It's a big thrill to be in your book.
Oh,
it
is.
For an actress. Look at this one.
Because you do have those skills. You know how to talk to actors. You know how to coach them. And you were such a help to me a couple of weeks ago on that demo reel thing.
I was about your actions and keeping it specific.
So I've taken your class a couple of times. I've been in your scene study class. What specific kind of audition skills can we talk about for our audience who, you know, they're all over the country. People are watching this. So we, of course, want to talk about Los Angeles, but you teach in New York. And
yeah, I teach in New York at Michael Howard's too, as well as here. I think that the thing that, first of all, there's been an explosion of audition classes. We all know this. And I don't call it an audition technique because I call it audition skills because there are so many different genres. You have to enter the world of each one.
And what do you mean by genre?
Well, genres, both on stage in terms of different writers. You're not going to handle Howard Corder the way you handle Moliere. You're not going to handle the way you would work on certain kinds of sitcoms, the way you're going to work on a primetime soap like Desperate Housewives. You're not going to work on this new Pushing Daisies, which is a beautiful new genre, which is a mix of sort of a Tim Burton magical realism world, Amelie. You know, it's fascinating. I don't know how long it will appeal. It's a very, very special world, but it has its own genre. So you need a different technique for a different world. But audition skills-wise, we also, with this proliferation, people are stopping studying their craft. And, you know, you're going to audition well if you're trained well. And
well, one of the things that I like specifically about the way that you teach is they have to come in with prepared work. And people have gotten the wrong idea about auditioning. They think it's cold reading. Yes, there's cold reading classes. That's a whole other thing. That is not auditioning. When you go in to read for a network show or for
really good point. Really good point. There are cold reading workshops, which I used to have a problem with. Because in New York, small town that it is compared to LA, there was a meritocracy of get in a good play, it'll be reviewed, casting directors come to more theater than they have time for here, and people will know your work after a while, and they'll read the reviews. Here, it's much tougher to get people, unfortunately, to see theater, and you need to network at the beginning of a career, and I love some of the cold reading workshops. I think they've been very effective for getting the ball rolling and getting agents as well.
But that's not audition technique.
Right, because
that's
you get
technique.
About 20 minutes outside to do that. Now, some people teach some audition classes where you go outside the same way for 20 minutes, work on the script, and come in. And that has really lowered our standards in a way that, to me, is detrimental to the actor to think that that's the standard, because we do get it quickly. We get it the day before, sometimes 6 p.m., 7 p.m. for 10 o'clock in the next morning. And this is why the need for audition coaches have proliferated, because instead of 2 or 3 days or a week that we used to get for plays, you have so little time to prepare, but you still want to prepare. I mean, I get audition coached. I'll call you, yes. I'll call a colleague of mine to coach me. I've had my students coach me, because in that short amount of time, we really need to flesh it out very quickly, but you still need to do the homework, the preparation. and I think the thing that I came here to talk about that I think is missing, that we all have to be more aware of, is to start with the storytelling. That as actors, a lot of times we create characters, we create moments. What we forget is our function in the story. And I don't think enough of us as teachers are emphasizing looking at the overview first to make informed choices based on dramaturgy, based on, am I the hero?
What the script tells you?
What the script tells you, and in terms of the story structure. And it's because I think a lot of us aren't writers or directors, and so we forget the story. We create great actor moments, and sometimes you might just act the crap out of a scene thinking, God, I was good in there, right? But you were totally inappropriate for what the story needed. And it's tragic to have an actor work that hard and then miss the storytelling boat in terms of what's your function. A lot of times in a sitcom, you're the guest, you're a straight man to set up the star who gets the laughs. They get the payoffs. You have to set them up in a lot of instances. Or you're the comic relief in an otherwise serious forensic procedural drama. And you get to have a little comic relief. Just say like an Alias, the wonderful guy who, you know, was their weapons expert. He was their comic relief, and the show needed it because there was so much dire suspense, thriller aspect, and he brought that in. And so knowing your function, both in the story and then within the scene, what your function is, and then knowing the event of the scene that has to happen, what moves the story forward. Directors know this, good directors know this. It's Aristotelian. And
so
I think
how
we need
to be specific, because to some people, what you've just said could be Chinese. You know, so in a scene,
yeah,
specific, what would be a function of a certain character in a scene?
Well, what happens a lot in guest spots is people come in and try to be the hero of the scene, like they know everything. Well, probably James Woods is the hero if in Shark. He's the one who gets to win the battle. You don't get to win the scenes. Or James Spader gets to win the cross-examination. He gets to win. He's the hero. A lot of us are so invested in being the hero of our audition. You know, we get confused. We want to show them how much we know, how knowing we are, how perceptive we are. Sometimes we're supposed to be the unknowing one, the dumb one, the clueless one. And the series regulars are almost always the heroes, or the antagonists that we grow to love, but the anti-hero we grow to love. So I think in terms of guest spots and co-stars, actors make big mistakes on their way up trying to be heroic. I always give out this nurse scene from Alias, and I always get these heroic nurses who seem to know that someone came into the nurse's room, the patient's room, when the nurse wasn't there, and one of the, you know, Sydney's co-workers is visiting this person who's probably in comatose from some espionage, you know, episode, and the Alias regular asks the head nurse, you know, where is, you know, last night's nurse, and she said, there's no Rebecca here, and he goes, no, she was here on the, you know, 5 to 11 shift, and the head nurse goes, there is no 5 to 11 shift. Well, heroic actor is going, there is no 5 to 11 shift. I seem to know something that will advance the plot of Alias because I think there's an espionage thing going on. And it's very well intended to be the heroic head nurse, but your job is just to come in and just say, you know, I'm sorry, I don't know who you're talking about. There is no, you know, 5 to 11 nurse, and split.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to the series regular going, oh my God, somebody was in here who didn't belong to here. Right. So it's their function to heroically move along and understand we're in jeopardy in that suspense kind of genre. So that's a very common mistake that we make out of our need to be as knowing as possible in the part. but actually the clueless parts are actually the more fun to do. And the more clueless you can be, you end up being Steve Carell clueless. And it's more fun to be clueless
build
anyway.
a career on that.
Yes, on cluelessness.
Well, one of the main reasons why I wanted Caryn on the show was because I quote her in the book, and she talks about it, and one of the most important things in her classes, and for all of us who've taken your class, we can't forget to butt breathe.
Oh, yes.
That's butt breathe. So will you explain that? And it is a great tool.
Well, I use this, I make a lot of jokey terms just because it's easier to remember, and we've all been told, I have, and I didn't from the beginning of our careers, to breathe more efficiently, both in our acting, and maybe I should breathe now on camera.
And I'm going to breathe.
Yes, we're going to butt breathe.
Yes.
There was a physiologist in 1915 named William Cannon who who coined the term fight or flight syndrome, which is when from 2 million years ago, when we were actually prey for others. You know, should I stop and be aggressive or flee? And what happens is our adrenals set off a huge amounts of adrenaline, and it's a shock to our system, and we get short of breath. Now, that's really a strong version of stage fright. And most of the time in auditioning, we have symptoms of that we're all, because we care so much, we're suddenly in a new space, new people, and we want to make a good impression. And a little fight or flight comes in there, some performance anxiety. And there are psychological things we have to look at about that, because it happens to really wonderful, well-trained actors, or wanting it too much happens. And we end up so caught in that anxiety that
I'm getting anxiety right now talking about it. Yes. Go on.
Yes. Well, I was reading more about it. I also hike, you know, and they say, you know, in hiking in the backwoods, everyone thinks the #1 reason people get in trouble or deaths in wilderness experiences is from hypothermia or, what was the other one, or falls. But it's actually panic.
Really?
People panic, and they find them, and they could have lasted with the supplies they had for a week. We get disoriented, we go into such intense fight or flight, and what you have to do is sit down and breathe slowly and think of scenarios how to get out of this. And so it happens in many ways. And what happens with actors is then we walk in, and we walk in, and the first thing we do when they call our name usually is we hold our breath. They go, Judy Kerr or Caryn West, and we walk in like children of the corn, you know. Yes, yes. Hi. And, you know, right? And, you know, are you ready? Yeah, yeah. And you took your last breath about, 50 yards back. Here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Our first line comes out, and we're not centered at all. And so what I try to teach, and it's not the kind of breath that keeps, I just patted us from falling out of our chairs, that the sort of, everyday survival, shallow breath. It's breathing to the bottom of our lungs, pressing on our diaphragm. Creates a need for some movement, and you can actually feel a very deep muscular nose inhalation of breath down in your butt. Yes, your anal sphincter. It's very slight, but you can feel it. And so just to get people used to breathing that deeply.
And it's not lifting your shoulders because you don't want it to show.
No, you want to. And we're both anally sphincter aware now, and on camera too.
You're right.
It's just making yourself grounded, because our procreative and creative center is that low as well. So we've got to really tap into our instincts from a centered place that's not from fear and up here or between our ears, because our greatest instincts. And so I'm constantly saying, you'll do all the homework in the world, but if you stop and shallowly breathe or stop breathing, a lot of people end up in auditions holding their breath while they're listening. So they might say a line and hold their breath, and say a line and listen holding their breath, and say a line and hold their breath. And that doesn't, and listening is the best part of acting, especially on camera. So we really got to force ourselves to listen with breath. Because we're still alive then, yes?
Right.
And a lot of us forget this very essential thing. So I have to emphasize it so much so we can still be present. Sometimes we try so hard in auditions, we just get in this overdrive, and yet we're a little panicked. So I think it's terribly important to sit and center in the waiting room, breathing and visualizing the story we want to tell. Not your line readings, which is very left brain. We want to have an integrated left-right brain. They say there was a wonderful Golf Digest article that I send out to people about
Caryn is quite the athlete.
Yeah,
I must mention.
Ex-athlete, but
well, you just hike Mount Whitney,
yes,
or
but, you know,
that's an ex-athlete.
Yes.
I don't think
lots of people. I'm in okay shape.
Yeah.
So there's an article called "Why Do We Choke?" And there was a very famous choke of Greg Norman in the Masters in 1996. He was 8 strokes ahead in the last 2. He just blew it in the last couple of holes. And so they did an interesting dateline, and Golf Digest did they put EKG and monitored their brain waves, their heartbeat, their sweat level to find out golfers. They gave them a 30-foot putt. Just try to make it. And these good golfers, the first time out, 25 of 30 made it. The second time they said, okay, there's $300 bet involved. Less made it. And the next one was Dateline is taping, so you'll be humiliated on camera if you can't make it, and you'll have to pay us $300 if you don't make it. So they kept raising the stakes.
Right.
And so the 5 putters who still under stress made that putt and did not choke, versus the putters who were capable of it at first, had the ability. Why did they choke under the stress of expectation and the camera on? What was the difference? Most people think they were less nervous. They were just as nervous. Their hearts were beating, just in an elevated way. The sweat level was there, but what they had was an integrated left and right brain. As opposed to what happens is when we stop breathing, we start becoming just left brain and mechanically oriented. We start just thinking our stroke or our line readings instead of, oh, I know how this is going to go. And the people who had integrated left-right brain are going, I want it to go over there, my body will adjust, and we're taking it over there. So if in the waiting room we butt breathe, center ourselves, think about what we want to have happen in terms of visualizing the storytelling. Athletes do this all the time. Visualize the event before we do it. Visualize the tee before we hit the ball. Visualize it going where we want it to go. And then walk in and be present to, that's what we're going to create today together, but in an integrated way that I'm still spontaneous, I make adjustments, I'm aware of my reader, my casting director. I'm breathing so I can receive. I'm breathing so I can process what I hear. All of those things really, really help ground us and be present in our work.
I think one of the things that you have to do in order to incorporate that is give yourself permission to take that time. You're worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
To take that breath. No one notices. It feels like you have to hurry and get through it. And
yeah, I think it's great to take like 3. It takes 15 seconds, to just, are you ready?
That seemed like a long time.
No, but
But what if they have the first line?
If you ask them to just wait for
How do
a
you
few
say
beats.
it? What do you
well,
say?
they're, you know, there's
Come
lots
on,
of
this is
tricks.
one of her
Okay, these are
tools.
the tricks.
Come on.
If they have the first line, I think it's, are you ready means, and if you're not, you don't say so. Most of us are, yeah,
Right.
yeah, need to please. Because another mentor of mine taught me about, she taught a stage fright workshop to opera singers. And her definition of stage fright was not being pleasing to yourself in the presence of others.
Say that again?
Stage fright is not being not pleasing to yourself in the presence of others, meaning you're afraid, do they like me? Maybe they won't like me. I don't know if anyone likes me. You know, it's almost a self-esteem issue, which, you know, actors is their blessing and their curse. So stage courage, if you invert that, would be pleasing to yourself and only yourself in the presence of others. Do what you want to do up there. And I think taking the breath, do what you want to do, take those breaths, because you need them to ground yourself. And get your energy quiet and focused to what it is you want to do. And with the casting director, you're more present and less anxious with them in the way you communicate. You can also make it a physical cue. Can you not start till I sit down? Just something, can you not start till I cross my legs or turn my page? Just something simple, a physical cue. Now, of course, casting directors work very hard. I used to think it was that we're mean. When you're young, you think they're mean sometimes. And occasionally there is one. And having a bad day, they're human beings. But mostly they're overworked, underpaid, you know. And
in a hurry.
In a hurry, and they're not getting their health insurance. And they have to see so many people in a pre-read. They just read the line so I can figure out. Right. But you still need to ground yourself to do your work. So they don't want elaborate preparations. They don't want you to turn your back and do, actor preps. Sense memories. It's too late. Too late. All of that has to be done in just tapping in. Have it on a shelf. Have what you need. Have your triggers, if that's the way you work, in the waiting room. And then take those 3 breaths to center and create what we're going forth with. So, you know.
What you said about pleasing yourself, then you know, if you can learn how to please yourself, then when you go in that room, at least one person will be pleased.
Oh, that's a nice way. Yes. Yes.
That's the only thing that you can control.
Absolutely. That is the only thing you can control in a spiritual way, and also then you won't have regrets. I did what I could do. I did the best I know how to do. I can't do any better than that. Because most of us go, oh, I didn't give my best. I call it, the French have a term for this, l'esprit d'escalier, spirit of the stairs. You know, if you've been in an argument and someone says something absolutely shocking and unjust to you, and you're rendered mute. Well, about 2 weeks later, you're going, in New York it's easier, you're going up the subway stairs and you suddenly have the perfect retort. I know what I should have said. But you didn't say it, you said it in repose, on reflection later, not in the moment. You withheld your instincts. And a lot of times in auditions, we get scared and we withhold our instincts. And then after the audition, we have this flood in relaxation of all the things we shoulda, coulda, woulda done in the audition. I call it l'esprit de sidewalk, l'esprit de parking lot, l'esprit de automobile. You're driving home going, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. You didn't leave it in the room and you're upset with yourself. You didn't have those impulses and release them in the room. Either the fear, the stage fright, the not breathing, you didn't release your best impulses in the room. And you want to be present, authentic in that room with what you're planning on doing and leave it there. And have
the full experience.
Absolutely.
You've driven across town, you've worked on it, you've paid your coach, you've done this, you've done that. Have it.
You do your thing.
Have it, because that's all there is. This is a process.
Right.
And so you must, in order to have any joy or happiness as an actor, those are your acting moments. You're going to be auditioning a lot more than you're working.
And not everybody's going to get you. Not everybody's going to get you. I mean, everybody knows.
I want to address one thing, and we're almost at the end of the show.
Oh, my goodness.
I told you, fast.
I guess we're breathing.
we've been focusing on audition technique,
Yeah.
but you have a wonderful scene study class, and there's other coaches who all over the country who teach scene study classes. And as you say, people are talking less now about, they're just talking about the auditioning and not doing the scene. So what's valuable about scene study class in today's market?
Ooh. In-depth practice. Really knowing how to read a script. In the long run, if you can't read a good script, what differentiates a good script from a bad script, you won't make good career choices. So you need, you know, if you're just reading 5 pages of cold reading scripts in those kinds of classes in just film and television, you're not going to have an in-depth way of looking at storytelling. You're also not going to get to work on a character the way you need to. You know, traditionally people did start in the theater, do 4-week rehearsal processes, and create a foundation. If you're here in LA, often you don't, but you still need to create a bag of characters that are the ensemble within you. And you're not going to create that unless you spend weeks on a character. At the beginning of a career, you need to build up that ensemble inside of you of characters. You know, by the time you've been acting for 15 or 20 years, sometimes you can pick up the script and go, I know I'm pulling out Nancy, and you know, that other girl I worked on, and she's in here, and your life experience too. So the depth of character, also being able to be present to other actors more and off the page, as opposed to a discipline of learning how to be ready and get off the script, because in these cold reading classes, people don't get off the script at all, and we can't shoot holding the script, so you need that. Just feeling the triumph of working in depth and how it fills you up.
And delivering. Going in and, well, I'm getting the wind-up sign, so I want to say to the audience, thank you so much for watching, and to you, Caryn, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
And I've been watching all of them, and I just want to congratulate you. I've learned a lot. I don't get to sit in the classes of some of my peers, and it's fun, you know. There's always more tools and more different ways of saying it, and it's really, you've had some wonderful people on, and it's been really fun to YouTube my way through.
Great. One of the things about scene study as well is getting the feedback from the teacher or the director, and then bringing it back.
Yes, making those
doing
adjustments.
it again. I mean, it's always you want to bring it in fully, and this is it, signed, sealed, delivered. And once in a while that happens.
Yeah, we're too performance oriented, and also a place where you can fail. You can't grow unless there's a place, a safe place, in your growing craft where you can say, I'm going to do something I'm not good at. You know, LA doesn't want to know what you're not good at, but an actor pretty soon is only good at about this range if you don't keep stretching. I have a soap opera actor who's working on The Grave Digger.